This is a story about the future. And the future can be scary.
Summer has come and passed. The innocent can never last. Wake me up when September ends.
So what is this? What is 23? Is it God?
I like it raw.
Raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw.
Ooh, baby, I like it raw.
On September 23rd of 2017, there is an alignment that is happening in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the constellations, which looks like something that John wrote about in chapter 12 of the book of Revelation. In the first two verses, he's talking about the sun, the moon, the stars, the wandering stars, which we call planets, and a constellation, which is Virgo. John says that he sees a great sign in heaven, that there is a woman, she is clothed in the sun, with the moon under her feet, and she has a crown of 12 stars on her head. But she's also pregnant, but not just pregnant, she's in labor and about to give birth.
We know that Virgo would be the woman. The moon will actually be at her feet. The sun will traverse right by her shoulder, clothing her in the sun. And in her head will be 12 stars. 9 of those will be the constellation of Leo. It makes up Leo. They're always there. But the 3 other ones that are not there are the syzygy, the alignment of planets. Mercury will align. We'll have Venus that's there, and also Mars, making up the 12 stars.
And we can see that the 12 constellations around the ecliptic only has one woman in it that the sun, the moon, and the wandering stars can travel through. And that would be Virgo.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
We are on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. It is 3 a.m. on September 23rd, 2017. The first constellation in the Great Sign is rising above the horizon. This is Leo, the constellation of the royal lion. When the dawn breaks, we'll see that Leo is worn as a crown of royalty by the Virgin Princess. The lion forms the appropriate crown for her because she is of the house of David, the lion of the tribe of Judah. Significantly, this is the highest royal lineage of all the nations. This means the Virgin is also born of the lineage of the high scepter of the seed of Adam. In her belly is the second Adam, the Savior of the world. On this fateful day, the Virgin is clothed in the sun, and the moon is at her feet. Sunlight floods the sky, and since the Virgin is clothed in the sun, we cannot see her, so we turn off her artwork. But the prophecy clearly states that the great sign is to appear in the heaven. High noon approaches. Then, on this special day, the sun turns as black as sackcloth, and the stars quickly fill the sky. Just like on the day of the crucifixion, it will remain dark for an incredible 3 hours. We stop the motion and zoom in. We fill the screen with our 2 constellations. To better see how the constellations are formed, we generate blue lines between their stars. Then we turn off the constellation artwork, leaving us with the lines of each constellation. We first turn our attention to the constellation of Leo. In Leo, the alpha or brightest star is Regulus, the regal king star. 8 additional bright stars are used to form the constellation. But this leaves us 3 stars short of the 12 stars prophesied to crown the Virgin. On this special day, 3 wandering stars are in rare formation within the boundaries of Leo. They are Venus, Mars, and Mercury. This gives us the prophesied 12 stars to form the crown. Now we move to Virgo. Her left hip is formed by the alpha star named Spica, which means the seed. Her right hip is formed by the zeta star named Hes, which means the branch. On this day, the Virgin is to give birth to the king planet between these 2 stars. Like all the planets, Jupiter, which images the Messiah, was misnamed and misdescribed by the Greeks. The king planet images the rescuing power of our Messiah. Because of this planet's gravitational strength, it takes countless hits or impacts for us from many of the dangerous objects that cross into the inner solar system. Also, the king planet has just spent 9 months in the belly of the Virgin, reinforcing the prophetic imagery of the scriptures. To illustrate this wonder, we will now run the clock backward for a year. Notice that the king planet stops and turns around twice in retrograde motion while in the belly of the Virgin. In turn, the moon flies by along the ecliptic every month. This action by the moon will give us a means to mark the passing of the months. We stop our backward motion. We now change into forward motion. We pause the motion as Jupiter enters the belly of the Virgin. Now count the times that the moon flies by while Jupiter is in the Virgin's belly. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And in just under 10 months, we arrive back at our fateful day, September 23rd, 2017. Now we will recap the prophetic imagery in the great sign. First, we have Virgo, the Virgin Princess, imaging the Virgin Mary. Second, the Virgin is clothed in the sun, imaging the life-giving Spirit of God. Third, the crescent moon is at her feet, heralding this day as the Jewish Feast of Trumpets. Fourth, on this day, the Virgin also has a special crown of 12 stars, representing the lineage of the high throne of the nation of Israel. Fifth, the Virgin gives birth to the crown prince, the Messiah. Sixth, the crown prince has just spent a long 9 months in her womb, the time of human gestation. Seventh, so we can see this wonder, a special heavenly event causes the sky to fall dark for 3 hours in the middle of the day. The combination of all 7 of these independent actions into a great sign brings to life the exact imagery of the prophecy. However, if this sign were to occur repeatedly in the course of the travels of the planets, then how could we interpret it as a significant event? How often does this configuration occur in the heavens? The answer: it occurs only this one time. At no other time is the Virgin clothed in the sun, with the moon at her feet, while she is wearing a crown of 12 stars at the same time she gives birth. We have found no astronomy program that shows this configuration occurring at any other time throughout history, from the days of Adam, 6,000 years in the past, until the end of the millennial reign, 1,000 years into our future. Yet, this wonder was described in detail in Revelation chapter 12, nearly 2,000 years ago. The astounding fulfillment of this great prophecy is like a clarion blast of God's trumpet, broadcasting to all that the sign is a magnificent herald of end times events. Furthermore, its appearance is to occur on the exact day the Lord intends, a plan He laid out before He created the heavens. This means the great sign is an event that cannot be anything less than a miraculous herald of prophetic events. Furthermore, the imagery does not end with the first two verses we just read in Revelation 12. On this day, a famous comet carrying the Rosetta probe is beside the crescent moon. This comet bodes a day of disaster for the moon god of Islam. At noon, the foot of the Virgin is on one side of the moon, the comet is on the other. By the end of the day, the moon will be under the Virgin's feet. This day in 2017 is also unique for other reasons. As mentioned, this is the day of the Feast of Trumpets, one of the 7 appointed feasts of the Lord. The 7 feasts are prophetic of the 7 most significant events in redemptive history. Jesus was crucified on the first spring feast. This is the day of the first fall feast. In turn, this day on this unique year is also on the weekly 7th-day Sabbath. Finally, it is also the day of the fall equinox. Incredibly, all of these date markers in the heavens are occurring on the same day on the Lord's calendar. The day progresses. At 3 in the afternoon, the eclipse will be over. The sun reappears and shines for 3 more hours before it sets in the west. At this point, the great wonder becomes the herald of great terror. The heavenly body that blocked the sun for 3 hours is immense enough to carry large debris rings of ice and sulfur, rings composed of material much like the rings of Saturn, only larger. Soon the earth must pass through one of these rings. This is when the firestorm of the Golden Empire occurs. It is the day of the death of Babylon the Great, which is the proud city of Sodom, which is the unrepentant empire, and 1 hour's time 1/3 of mankind will die. Foreseeing the intensity of the hour, the Lord has foretold time and again that not one person who calls upon His name will be lost. The shouting and terror begins. Jerusalem will be safe from the firestorm because of the earth's rotation. In contrast, unmitigated disaster falls upon the Western world. One of God's great purposes for apocalyptic scripture is to shake us into realizing that our situation is serious and that we must take action before these events arrive in order to guard our souls and the souls of all those we love. Dawn in the shadow of Congress. It is the day of the great sign. Forerunners of the firestorm of the Golden Empire streak the sky. The end is within hours. The great sign in heaven heralds the world's entrance into end times troubles. God's grace is manifested in this sign. It has been created to warn us, flee from the wrath to come. The day of the anger of the Lamb is approaching, for the great day of His wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? The only way for you to flee is to flee to the Lord. The wise men had the eyes to see that the Star of Bethlehem meant a prophetic day was upon them. They then acted on what they saw. Do you have the eyes to see that the great sign from heaven means a prophetic day is upon you? The most famous star of history was a herald of good news. In contrast, God is going to use the largest sign in history to herald terrifying news. The first herald called forth shouts of great joy. This second herald will call forth shouts of great terror. The great sign is so significant, there are at least 3 forerunner signs preparing the way for its appearance. The blood moon tetrad, the famous comet carrying the Rosetta probe, and the great American eclipse of 2017. Midway between the blood moons of 2014, the Caliphate of Islam was reborn. This event constitutes the birth of the little horn, the 8th prophetic king described in Revelation chapter 17. It will become the empire of the beast. The great comet carrying the Rosetta probe passed into the constellations of the great sign on the very day of the 4th blood moon. stitching together end times signs. It will remain in the great sign for 2 years and be beside the moon when the great sign appears, boding disaster for Allah and his new caliphate. The great American eclipse of August 21st, 2017. This solar eclipse sweeps around half the earth but brings darkness to only one land, the United States of America. This is the final heads-up call to awaken. Cataclysmic judgment is only 33 days away. The Great American Firestorm will arrive 33 days after the Great American Eclipse of 2017. God's purpose of fearful sights and great signs from heaven is to bring many people who would not have done so otherwise to call upon the name of the Lord. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. God has designed special configurations among the stars to function as signs. They are signs that herald prophetic events on the earth. This heralding will serve notice before the eyes of the world that the time of events foretold by the Lord has arrived. All this means the great sign in heaven has full authority to function as a public event, legally documenting the final great warning of God. The Lord is the great prophet. As a prophet, he is accountable to warn all who are under his ministry. The great wonder in heaven is his imminent and astounding warning to all. The time of judgment is here. This judgment is written in the book. This judgment is written in the stars. The prophets have warned you. This judgment is just. This means the Lord cannot be charged with any wrong against man or angel for the judgment he is bringing upon the world. You are served notice. The Lord's end times events are about to overtake you. The great sign in heaven is the colossal herald proclaiming that the prophetic troubles of the last days have arrived. Most of us refuse to believe God's work by faith, while we will believe his working through a sign. So God is going to give us a sign, a great sign. This great sign will herald sudden and great judgment. But why? The rebel lawmakers of the Golden Empire have foolishly attacked Christian purity. The attack on purity is because the lawmakers will not have holiness to rule over them. But to reject God's holiness is to reject God himself. In the end, the rebels' own reasoning forces them to declare war on God. As soon as the rebels feel bold enough, open war breaks out. In defiance, they reach out and seize their own court officers that are still walking in holiness. At this point, the spirit of Sodom overtakes the land. The Lord acts swiftly. The judgment of Sodom will be poured out on the spirit of Sodom. The Lord begins moving into place his storehouse for the day of battle. Like little David, all he needs is some rocks. The day of battle arrives. It is a day of fearful sights and great signs from heaven. The Lord takes aim, and the golden Goliath suddenly falls. The empire will die in 1 hour, unrepentant in its wickedness. The unrepentant empire and the church in the unrepentant empire have together refused to confess the empire's fatal sin. What is this fatal sin that brings such sudden judgment? Our fatal sin is the replacement of holiness with human rights as our guiding moral principle in life and government. This is in direct opposition to the Lord's decree, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." The manifest insanity of pornographic rights, abortion rights, and homosexual rights is the diseased fruit of the doctrine of human rights. This is why evil has become good, and good has become evil in our land. The unrepentant adherence to the doctrine of human rights that is producing the trampling of the holiness of God in our courts is the guarantee of the firestorm of the Golden Empire. Your only hope will be to turn to the Lord Jesus Christ. For Jesus himself said, "As earnestly as I can say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God." In the same conversation with Nicodemus, Jesus also said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life."
Are you serious? Are you serious? Today, we're closing in on, of course, September 23rd. The constellational alignment will be in perfect alignment to be able to see the woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and the 12 stars in her crown. And also, this great red dragon will lurk in the darkness, this other wonder in heaven, to attack the woman. and the child that she delivers.
And there appeared to be another wonder in the heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. So it turns out there is something hiding in Virgo, which is being censored by SkyMap, and partially censored by Google Sky, but perhaps unintentionally left buried and uncensored in old NASA.gov archive. Let's start with the basics. The box shows the area where we're going to be focusing on. Now compare it with the above image where Jupiter is going to be on September 23rd for future reference using SkyMap. Now once you switch the iris to infrared astronomical satellite, you're presented with this. Interesting, isn't it? Now why on earth would knowledge that should be readily available to the public be censored, and only in the infrared spectrum? Fortunately, SkyMap isn't the only program available for us to look at. So here's a look at the constellation of Virgo in Google Sky Maps to give you a frame of reference. And now here's a look at the same area zoomed in using infrared imaging with Google Sky. Now do you see it? This in itself proves nothing, but one has to wonder why this particular patch of sky is being censored. Thankfully, NASA has an archive of several types of infrared images of this patch of space stored deep in a .gov website archive. Also, there will be a link in the description box for this patch of sky in both SkyMap and Google Sky. Now here's where it gets very interesting. According to NASA, this is what is sitting behind the censored patch of sky. Now compare the above to the partially censored patch of sky in Google Sky, and you'll find that they match up visually. Compare the coordinates to the pictures in NASA archive, and you'll find that they are in the same location. Now is it just me, or do I see 2 eyes, or a snout, and a smiling row of teeth? Not only does it remarkably resemble a dragon, but it also happens to be sitting exactly where it needs to be in order to fulfill the following verse of Revelation 12-4. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child, as soon as it was born. As in, if you check the location of whatever this thing is, and compare it to Jupiter, will be on September 23rd, 2017. It's standing right in front of it. September also happens to be a Jubilee Feast of Trumpets, 50 years since Israel took back Jerusalem, also known as Rosh Hashanah. Pardon the pun, but given that these things very accurately match prophetic texts written 1,900 plus years ago in advance, I find the odds of it all being nothing more than a coincidence to be absurdly astronomical.
I did a little bit more research and I found something really quickly that looks a little bit like this, and scientists, because they're really clever and know more than we know, are saying that it looks like a dark matter bridge, whatever one of them might be. Dark matter is supposedly 27% of the whole universe's mass, and you can't see it and you can't detect it, so it's a very, very easy theory to defend. I wonder if it's a coincidence that the Vatican owns the world's largest binocular telescope with an infrared device that they've named the Lucifer device. You can't write this stuff.
Getting ready to move into this phase of biblical prophecy, the revealing of the coming of the beast. Now the beast, the mark of the beast system won't start September 23rd, but the revealing of the coming of the beast and his system is on the horizon. But remember who wins. Are you saved? Give your life to Jesus Christ. He's coming.
David Mead says he used text found biblical passages including Luke's 21:25-26 and Revelation 12:1, as well as the pyramids of Giza and the recent full solar eclipse to conclude, with zero scientific evidence, that September 23rd is the end life of Earth as we know it. He claims Nibiru will either crash into our planet, turning it into space dust, or it will graze us and pull our Earth off of its axis, which will cause devastating earthquakes, volcano eruptions, hurricanes and other violent acts of Mother Nature. Wait, that's already happening. Of course NASA has confirmed that his theory is complete BS and that no mystery planet is out there waiting to collide with Earth in a matter of days. NASA senior scientist David Morrison even made a video about it explaining how Nibiru is an impossibility after getting a letter from a 12-year-old girl who said she and her classmates were terrified about the apocalyptic claim. See pics of the total solar eclipse, here. There is no credible evidence for the existence of Nibiru, he says is the simplest answer before going on to give more scientific reasons. He says if Nibiru existed, it would already be perturbing the orbits of Mars and Earth, and that isn't happening. He ended his video with a sharply worded message, please, get over it. Nibiru isn't real. Planet X isn't real. We don't have to worry about this hoax. Phew, that's a relief. It would really suck for the world to end on Saturday just as all of the new fall TV shows are about to premiere next week. Top 20 News. Did you buy into the Nibiru theory? Or did you know immediately it was a hoax?
I'll tell you what, today is going to be about a revealing Monday. This could be a very interesting set of topics we're going to have today. It's good to be able to join you all, and I am incredibly grateful for this time that we live in with the multitude of individuals with the knowledge you have. And it's going to become very apparent as to all these strange comments I make, because we certainly do have to prepare. You've heard many people speak about what will befall the earth. We've read in the Bible what will befall the earth. We have gone through transitions. We see them in the world, and we see them all the time. We know that there's a spiritual component to what we have to do, but how do the two fit together? Here's why I'm stating this. There are many people who look at life through the lens, a very different lens, a lens without a preface or a precept in their lives. They live life and they have their ambitions and goals in this world. And we have reached a time where man will begin to reveal what was once hidden, because they can no longer hide certain facts. They really cannot. But the unfortunate part is this: when people see, when they begin to see, it's too late. You know, I had a briefing today that is just, you know, it goes along with so many other things that are in the Word of God. I can tell you now that people don't know how to react to certain things that are being observed, and we have to clarify some things. So tonight we're going to hop into Revelation chapter 8. We're going to be using that tonight because we're going to have to take another look at it. You see, every time, throughout the course of time, new things are brought forward. Hidden things are made known. And, of course, you can speak about the spiritual component of things as things are revealed to mankind. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have you've heard me say the term Earth is in trouble. But I'll tell you this, we would do well never to forget the spiritual components of what's real, certainly of our Lord. And so, it's a good thing nobody has seen me yet, because you guys are really going to think I'm cuckoo. I'm going to say it anyway. I have to say what I'm going to say. You may think I'm cuckoo for saying it, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it because I know it's true. There are certain things I have personally observed with my own two eyeballs, right? And it was not something you embrace, or it's not something you get excited about and say, wow, I've seen such and such. No. Certain things you see can shake it can really just rip the fabric of your own little lifestyle, right? But it really is time for us to wake up. For so long throughout the course of our times, we've read the prophecies from a distance. We said, wow, this is coming in the future, maybe. Maybe not in my future, maybe in somebody else's future. Well, I can tell you right now, you can halt that because it's coming in your future. And your future is any moment beyond this very moment right now. So in the next 5 minutes, that's part of your future, right? I can tell you that these things are coming in your future. And this is the real reason why we are putting together the COT Science team. And we're going to have to get these things out and have some people truly prepared. I really don't think right now at this point that people are truly prepared. They think they are prepared because they think they know what to expect. They don't know what to expect. That would be almost impossible. You can be spiritually prepared in your heart, and that's good. That is the most important thing, because there's a spiritual component many people don't comprehend. You see, what was ancient and things of old, and even the spiritual realm, is going to be very, very, it's going to be understood perfectly by everybody, right? That's also in the book of Jeremiah, that in the end they would consider it perfectly, right? Because it's very confusing. It's not logical. It does not obey laws and commands and physics or science or anything else. Something so strange will take hold of this earth. No one will have an answer for what's happening. The closest answer you can ever have is in the Bible, and through some, not all, through some ancient writings. And all they did was write down the bad things that happened to them. But there will come a time when all men will pray. They will pray. If they're an atheist, they're going to pray. And they're going to say, if anybody's out there, please help me. Please let me be on your side. Let you be on my side, and let me be on your side. Because at that point, what is coming upon the earth is something that cannot be, you just can't properly explain it, right? And it does go along with the dragon, the great red dragon. It does go along with that, because this thing is more metaphysical than physical. It really is. Many people refer to this thing as, you've heard it, the destroyer, right? The ancient people referred to this as many different things, but I'm telling you, it is. I have not heard a description based upon what myself and a group of people were briefed on and saw, that there's no way in the world you can explain this thing by science or anything else. Science will not do it. It's not obeying what most people think. It doesn't. So I give you two happenings. One, you will see an intrusion into our solar system. That's not going to be the problem. It's the indescribable thing that they found very difficult to explain. The one thing in all ancient writings they had in common is this. It made everybody consider and know that God was real. They no longer had to it wasn't a belief in their mind. They knew God was real. However, if you think you know, and I know that people do their best jobs, right? And they're not. They do a really fantastic job because they're not, they're not privy to certain pieces of information. They haven't seen with their own eyes what the true optics are picking up. They don't know that there are certain things out there that do not obey physics or different laws and orbits, or there's some weird things out there. They're just weird. They don't obey any type of physics or science. In fact, they're indescribable. They haven't seen that. They never, ever explain this to the public because you can't see it yet. Right? And if you can't see it, it's not going to hurt you. But I'm telling you now, there are things that do not obey what we're comfortable with. There is no calculation for them. You're not going to get a sense of power from them. All right? And our universe is so incredibly vast. There's no way they can share that with a common individual. For one, it would prove that the spiritual realm is all too real, and it will scare you to pieces. Even if you believe in Christ, I'm telling you, it would shake you. It would shake your flesh to behold these things. And it's not something you ever want to see coming. So I give you a caution too. Before you get excited saying that the day of the Lord is near, right? Don't get excited because the day of the Lord is near, right? But be encouraged to be on the right side of the Father. Be on His right side, right? Be on His right side. It is only the spiritual embrace that's going to save who is saved.
And near the Gulf Coast. At these briefings, we're being told the following, that there's this planetary-sized object called Nibiru that's coming into our solar system. It's going to be causing very severe problems, much more so than it already is, very soon. And that they're being put on standby to bug out. They're being told that there'll be little notice, possibly 2 weeks or so, before they're given the notice to bug out. Oh, they're also, by the way, they're being shown a map at these briefings. And they're signing non-disclose agreements before they go into the briefings, before the briefings begin, agreeing to not disclose to anybody else what they're learning. Anyway, at these briefings, these people are being told that when the call comes, they will only be able to take basically what you would take if you were flying on a commercial airline, a carry-on bag and one check bag with family photographs, personal important papers, documents, and whatever clothes you can fit in. End of story. And they have to abandon all their other clothing, personal possessions, furniture, appliances, automobiles, all the rest of it. Well, the automobiles, I'm not sure. They might be bugging out in personal vehicles. That's unclear to me. And it's probably going to be a mixed bag of how people make their way away from these coastlines. I was talking to Tim Spencer about this and my friend Command Sergeant Major Page, both of whom are veterans of the U.S. military. And the agreement between the three of us was that these kinds of briefings would not take place a year in advance. They would not take place 6 months in advance. 4 to 6 weeks is probably pretty likely. Probably not more than 3 or 4 months. So that's our belief. I hope we're wrong. I hope that this turns out to be incorrect information. If it is, well, that's great. If it's not, if it turns out to be correct, then you've got your heads up. So I asked the question this morning to all of you out there, to the several thousand of you listening to me on the morning of July 11th, 2012. What would you do if you had 6 years to prepare? What would you do if you had 6 months to prepare? What would you do if you had 6 weeks to prepare? There's going to be different answers to those 3 different questions, aren't there? 6 weeks is a possibility. I hope it's wrong. I truly, in my heart of hearts, hope that that is wrong. I know that at some point that we will get warnings like this that are viable and will be the real deal. And unfortunately, I think this may be it. I don't know. I hope it is not. My source will be, I'll be talking to my source on a weekly basis for the foreseeable future, for probably several months into the future, probably till the end of this year, most likely. We're going to be getting to know each other real well and communicating as we track this thing and see where it goes. My source doesn't want to hear this either. I mean, we're both mature men. We're both Vietnam vets, and he has a life he's put together for himself and his family that he doesn't want to see disrupted. I have a life I've put together for myself and my family I would just soon not see disrupted. But reality is, well, it is what it is. And when we get the call, when we get the call about the bug out, I will report it the next show I'm on the air. Anyway, my source told me about this dependent. My source is not the dependent, by the way. The dependent was looking at my map and saying that my map was very close to the map that the dependent was shown at the briefing. Very close. As we say, as Tim Spencer would say, close enough for government work. There's going to be deviations between the map that I recreated working with the 3 Navy veterans and the map the government is showing. However, it is close enough. Knowing if Aunt Nellie's house is going to be underwater in South Carolina really is not the issue. No, it's not. The issue is the Atlantic coast, Pacific coast, and Gulf Coast will all be underwater, 50 miles inland, 75 miles inland, 100 miles, depending on where it is, wiping out the regions, the homes, the businesses, the schools, the hospitals, where about half this population in the United States live, work, and play, including Washington, D.C., New York, Baltimore, Miami. It's a long list of major cities. That's the point. Not whether Aunt Nellie's house is going to be underwater in South Carolina. That's not really the issue. People that live near the Atlantic coast, Pacific coast, Gulf Coast, I've had these conversations dozens of times the last 10 years. They want to go to a map, they want to look at my map and see if their house or if Aunt Nellie's house is going to be underwater. That's not the point. It's human nature, you're going to try to do that, I know that. That's not the point. The briefings I'm getting from my confidential source have the ring of truth to them. They do. And I will do everything I need to do to protect my source, make sure my source remains confidential. In fact, the original source does not even know that they are a source. That's how we've kept this confidential. They don't even know they're a source. But that's a good thing. That protects them also. Searching for a date, searching for a time frame is something, it's human nature. I get these inquiries all the time whenever I have these conversations with groups of people or individuals. When's this going to happen, John? Well, I still don't know. I know I'm reporting as much as I know right now. As my friend Professor McCanney would say, and he published this in his book, a lady was asking him about a time frame, and his response was, well, ma'am, if I give you a date, what are you going to do? Buy another case of tuna fish? I think that's almost a word-for-word quotation there. Last-minute preparations means getting down to prioritizing, making a list of priorities, making sure you have the things that the essentials that you absolutely must have. Your water filter, your food supply, medical supplies, communications equipment, whatever, boots and hats and gloves, fuel stored up, seeds for your gardens, hopefully a safe haven. That would be a really, really good thing, a safe haven where you can live and be safe and grow your own food. away from a major metropolitan area at a good altitude with a decent growing season, plenty of water, and so forth. If you don't have a safe haven, I would urge you to secure one. I think that would be one of the highest priorities a person could and should have, is securing a safe haven for themselves and the people they care about. These next few months between now and October. Do we have 6 weeks, 8, 12? I don't know how many weeks we've got. Maybe we got 120 weeks. Make your list of priorities and work the top priority first, then number 2, and then number 3, and so forth. You can work on 2 or 3 priorities at the same time, by the way. You don't have to limit yourself to one at a time. When Dr. Deagle, it's been, 4 years ago now, asked me to make a top 10 list of things for preparedness, it instantly struck me as something very essential, an excellent exercise. I had not done it before. So I put together my top 10 list. And Dr. Deagle and I have talked about that several dozen times the last few years on the Friday afternoon show on Genesis, Dr. Deagle's third hour. As you regular listeners know that hear me on Dr. Deagle, I do get to talk a little bit. At some point, my source will let me know, and I will let you know. We have a caller on hold here, Linda in Ohio. Good morning, Linda.
Hi, John. I just got my new video, so I needed to ask you, and thank you for updating, because I have new listeners listening in, and so, they haven't heard any of this information before, so I know you think it's repetition, but...
Well, coming into this cold can be quite a shock, to say the least, but go ahead, Linda.
I understand. Are the lakes being affected? I live about 30 miles away from Lake Erie.
Right, or
just the ocean.
The larger the body of water, the more it's going to have there's going to be problems.